If you believe writing is one of the most easiest things in the world to do, then think again. Now, why would I say so? Just think a little. Think about how many manuscripts are written every day, every year. Think about how many is finally published during that year. And you will see just how difficult a job writing is. Now let's take it a little further. Script writing is probably the most difficult of them all. Just think about it. How many scripts are written every year? And only a handful of it is ever turned into films or TV shows. Hi, I'm Isaac, and this is How to Write Your Screenplay, a step-by-step guide. Just think about it. Just take time out and think about it. How many people have written some manuscript that never got published? How many people have written scripts for films or TV shows that never got made? The problem with writing something someone else could have written or no originality is because writers have one huge problem. As a writer, you are never working with new material because there are no new stories that you can write. All the stories that could have been written over the last few years or since the time people started to write stories already have been written. Every theme, every idea for a story was explored before. So you already start with a disadvantage. But this disadvantage, you as a writer must turn into an advantage. Why do I say so? No matter what genre of story you want to write, someone has already written about it. And there were some things in those stories that made some of those stories more successful than others. And you can learn from that, but not copy it. You can learn from it, but you should never copy it. Now, how do a writer come up with something that is fresh and original when all the stories in the world have been written already? Where do stories come from? Well, let me tell you, stories are everywhere around us. Wherever we look, there is a story. The question is, how do we tell those stories? The thing is, how we interpret stories will also determine what will be in the story. When you look at the back there is a woman in there. But what story do that woman tell? What story can you read from her? She has no face. You can't really see her arms and her legs. But below her, there's something else. Below her is a coffin. What does that say? Does it say it is that woman's heartache that is in that coffin below her? Was supposed to be in that coffin below her? No, it tells a far bigger story. And if you go into the history of this monument and you look at the history of that woman in this monument, it represents, or she represents, many women. And that coffin that stands at the bottom of her feet represents many babies. So it depends on how you tell the story, how you look at it, and what you make of that story. Writing is a process. No matter what you are writing, it can be a novel, a script, a report for business, or anything else you have to write, whether it's poems, whatever, it's a process. And there are things that you have to go through, whether you like it or not. You see, writing as a process can even become more complicated than it already is, especially if you are writing a story, say for example about feudal times or about an historical figure. It can become very complicated indeed. And it is complicated already. Writing is a very tedious process. It starts with writing. After you came up with that idea, then you have to analyze that idea. You have to write again, rewrite again, analyzing that idea, rewriting and rewriting. But with period pieces or historical stories about historical people, it even can become even more and more complicated. And the reason for that is, you might not even be interested in history, and someone might ask you to write something that is a historical piece or something that is in the deep history of us people. Then what do you do if you are not interested in history?